San Francisco.
All right, you guys, it's episode 33 of Inner Demons. I'm going to get straight to it. But before I do, let me just say this. I know you guys have been waiting for episode 33 of Inner Demons. All I'm going to say is that this last week and a half has been hectic. I haven't really been able to put that much content out, period. I think I put one war story out, and in that war story, I believe I might even have mentioned what I'm about to tell you right now. So, you know, this episode right here, 33, I actually cut this video about 5 days ago. And as soon as I was done with the video, I knew I wasn't going to like it, for the simple fact that I just felt like I wasn't detailed enough. There were things that I don't think I elaborated on. I didn't get into certain things, and there were things that were completely off topic that I just rambled on and on and on about. You know, some of you asked about some things in the comments, and I tried to clarify them, but I think that I went on for too long breaking down those questions that you guys had to ask. And there's no doubt in my mind, some of you guys would have been like, come on, B, you know, that stuff was completely off topic, and, you know, you should have saved that for another video. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to save that for another video. I'm not going to get into all that stuff. I'm going to just cut straight to the chase and get right back to where I left off on episode 32. The other thing is, there were a few haters, and I'm going to say this. It doesn't matter how good your content is. It doesn't matter who you are, what you're affiliated with, what you're not affiliated with, what you did, what you didn't do. It doesn't matter. No matter what you do, you're always going to have haters, people that are not going to like you, people that are not going to like your content, people that are going to be overly critical because they just want to bang on you. They want to bash on you. And, you know, I responded to some of that. And again, I probably went on for too long about that. And I think for some of you, it's discouraging. Like, why even give these cats the time of day to even acknowledge it? Because then it just gives them life and gives them some fire to come back and continue on and on until eventually I just figure out that, you know what, it's a waste of time. Why am I even giving these dudes any airtime? So I'm not even going to get into it. All I'm going to say is for those cats, if you don't like the content, get up out of here. Get on down the ramp. There's 1,000 other YouTube channels that you guys can watch. And there's no reason for you to be here. You don't even need to drop any comments. You don't need to show your ass. Just get on down the ramp. Go. Spin off. Anyway, let me get to where I ended off on episode 32. So at the end of episode 32, I believe there were multiple issues that I touched on, and I'm not going to go back into them. But, you know, one of the things that I talked about was the allegiance of some of the COs. Some of them were sympathetic to the Norteños. Some of them were sympathetic to the Southsiders. And it went all the way down to the female officers wearing different color scrunchies in their hair that determined who they aligned themselves with, either the Norteños or the Sureños. And like I said, if there was a female that had a blue scrunchie in her hair, it didn't always mean that, but more than likely it did. And you could tell if you were dumb enough to ask her something or ask her for something, you would be able to tell just by the attitude, by the way she responded, if she was really about that because of the color of the scrunchie in her hair. Because some of them would just have bad attitudes. You'd ask them for a roll of toilet paper and be like, I'll see if I got time, with just straight fucking attitude. And then, you know, there's others that had the red scrunchie, and you'd ask them and they'll be like, yeah, I got you guys. You guys need anything else? You know, so it's not, I'm not making this stuff up. You know, I told you guys there was another CO named Hernandez that worked there. Oh boy was from Fresno, and he straight identified himself as being a Norteño. And he's the one that kind of put me up on game. He was like, hey, you see a lot of these female officers, a lot of them, they bang with either you guys or them. He's like, check out the color of their scrunchies. That's how you can tell. He's the one that told me. That wasn't something that I thought of myself. I didn't. It wasn't like I seen them wearing a blue scrunchie, and I was like, she's she's riding with the Southsiders. I didn't make that connection. I wouldn't have, because I'd never seen that before. Not that blatant. I never, in San Quentin, I had seen COs that basically let it be known that they rock with us, that they had a lot of respect and admiration for us, and that they knew a lot of the old timers from the past. A lot of these guys used to work in Quentin for years, and they let it be known. But it was to an extent. I'd never seen somebody like Hernandez just straight identify himself as being an active Norteño the way he did. He didn't just rock with us. He identified himself as being one of us. In his mind, he was an active Norteño. And I told you guys, he used to tell us stories about some of the fights that he got into in the parking lot with other COs that sympathized with the Southsiders. He would tell, and this guy was a big dude. He was a big, aggressive dude. So, he was out there, according to him, he was out there knocking cats out. He would tell us, straight fisticuffs out in the parking lot last night, man. This fucking weenie was talking shit, and he was using all the derogatory terms that Norteños use when they describe Sureños. And he just tell us, he was like, yeah, man, this fool's been acting like a little bitch, and I know he rocks that way. So last night I fucking jammed him up, and the next thing you know, he started running his mouth, and I drilled him. But it was crazy. It was just crazy to see that over there. But it was also good. I kept an open line of communication with him, even though I knew that, you can't be an active Norteño and be working law enforcement. I let him run with it, and I fed his ego. I told him, hey, it's good to have, a homie working here, somebody that understands, our situation, and to have that open line of communication with him. He sucked it all up. But we really did have an open line of communication with him, because, whenever he would end up being the one to escort us out to the yard, and it wasn't that often, it was almost like other COs were trying to purposely keep him away from certain people and have him working out there outside the unit somewhere where he wasn't dealing with the yard shit. But, whenever he would come to escort us out to the yard, he would tell us stuff like, hey, watch this guy. This guy likes to try to go for your legs, and he'll try to pick you up and slam you. Or this guy right here, he's a swimmer. All he does is just start swinging haymakers. This guy, watch him. He likes to kick. Or this guy's been known to drop weapons in the past. So just keep your eyes open, stuff like that. So it was good to have, information like that. If I didn't know it already, some of that stuff we already knew ourselves, but some of it we didn't. And, when it came to the betting, he would straight tell us about the betting. We already knew this as well, but, he'd tell us, hey, yeah, these two Southsiders over there got them up with these two Africanos yesterday, man. I won $400, man. I had my money on the Africanos. They dusted them fools. Or, or when we were going out, hey, I got $75 on you guys, man. There's big money. There's a couple of us that got big money on you guys, so you guys better go out there and do your thug dizzle. You know what I'm saying? So it was crazy. It was crazy to just see that over there. And being that, Corcoran is over there by Bakersfield, like the border of Northern and Southern California, it was believable, because a lot of these COs, like I said, they had family that were either from Northern or Southern California that were locked up, so they had relatives that were in the system. So, this is not something that's just far-fetched. I've seen it in other prisons, just not as much as it was happening in Corcoran. So anyway, one of the other things that I was talking about at the end of episode 32 was the fact that Joe Morgan was there in Corcoran, and we all knew who he was. And he was going by an Aztec name on the tier. I believe it was Cocolismo, something like that. But, you know, I told you guys how there were two homeboys, two Norteños, that ended up going out to the yard with them, and they were brothers, biological brothers. They went out to the yard with them, and nothing happened. And, you know, this is not a secret. It's just I didn't drop their names because I'm not going to get into all that. For those of you that have been to Corcoran, for those that were there, maybe some of you can tap in and expose them if that's what you want to do, because there's quite a few viewers that wanted to know who are they, B? You know, I'm sure that, you know, they ran their mouths about you, so why not just put them out there? I understand that, but you know, I just don't want to start getting into all that and it becoming a distraction. Everybody knows who it was. You guys can figure it out. They're part of leader. One of them's part of leadership right now. His brother dropped out. His brother dropped out after Corcoran when they went to the Bay, and the one that stayed, he ended up becoming part of leadership. Now, there was a lot of homies that dropped reports on that incident. A lot of homies knew about it, and a lot of homies dropped reports. So it's not a secret. Anyway, Joe Morgan wasn't the only big name Mexican Mafia member that was there. There were a lot of Mexican Mafia members that were there in Corcoran, and we knew who they were, just like they knew who we were. When you're in these type of environments and you have adversaries around you, whether it's Pelican Bay, Corcoran, or even any of these other, even some of these main lines, just doing time period, county jails, it doesn't matter. Whenever you got opposition there in the same facility with you, you're always going to know where they're at. That's your responsibility. It's to know your surroundings, to know who else is around you, who they are, a little bit about their status. And they do the same thing with us. You know, there's been times where up in Pelican Bay, just as an example, when Boxer Enriquez, when he dropped out, I believe some of the paperwork that he turned over, or that he gave them, or that some of the knowledge that he dropped, was that, you know, they had a list of names with regards to our leadership. And some of those individuals were put on a high priority hit list, or they called it a hard candy list. But some of those names were on that list, and they knew who everybody was up there. The Mexican Mafia, they're similar to there's a lot of parallels. I've went into all that before. There's a lot of parallels to the NF. These two organizations, they operate a lot alike. When it comes to gathering information and knowing who your enemies are, they're on point when it comes to that stuff, just like us. So, you know, we all knew who was there. Joe Morgan was just one individual that I mentioned because of that incident that I told you guys about. But I'll tell you guys like this. So, like, Joe Morgan was there. Benjamin Topo Peters was there. Mike Eisen was there. Achali from San Francisco. There's another guy named Ivan that's with, I don't remember his last name, but he's another guy from San Francisco that when he comes to prison, he rocks with the M. So he's a Mexican Mafia member, but his name's Ivan, and a lot of people know him out there on the streets as being, they knew him for being with a female named Scary Mary. He was there. Sleepy Escalette was there. I've talked about him before in one of my or his brother in one of my war stories. There was a guy named, I want to say his name, they called him Cheeks. His name was I want to say Richard Buchanan. He was there. Don't quote me on this, but I think Pee Wee Gary was there from I believe he's from the Avenues. I might be wrong. He was there. some guy named Stump Angel Valenzuela or Valencia. There was Artie Guzman was there. I'm trying to remember as many names as I can because I know some of you are gonna ask about this. Again, don't quote me on this, but I think Chuco was even there. Ernest Castro, he was there. Chato from Watts. I know Ricky Cruz and another guy named Robert Lopez. They were there. I forget their plicazos. Those are the ones that I can remember right now off top. As far as ABs, I know Cornfed was there and another guy named Bamboo. Those were two ABs that were there. They were putting in a lot of work. I don't know if John Stinson was there, youngster. I don't know if Kurt Turflinger, Danny Troxel, if any of those guys were there. I don't remember. I don't never remember hearing their names. Some of the big name NF members that you guys have probably heard a lot of stories about over the past is, like I told you guys, Big Chente Arroyo was there from Chino Sinners. He was there. Bad Boy from Corcoran was there. Huerito from Las Baños was there. Huero from Farmas. Pistol Pete from Woodland. Killer B from San Jose. Diablo from Tracy. Chano from Bakersfield. Coco from Bakersfield. Chispas from Salinas. Those are some of the ones that I can remember right there. Chispas from Salinas, he was there. I know Silver was there, but I think he was there. He came later after everything was already done. So those are some of the big names across the board that I can remember. And there was probably more. Black Neck was there too, another Mexican Mafia member. And then there's two other ones that I'm going to talk about in this. It's probably going to be in this video. If not this one, it'll be in the next one. But those were two that we'd end up getting into with. So I really don't want to put them out there until I tell you guys what happened. So anyway, at the end of episode 32, I also talked about the last incident that me and my other cellie had with Wino and his brother. And I'm just gonna call his brother because some of you are saying that I'm pronouncing his name like the Chorros, and it's not done on purpose as any form of disrespect. I thought it was Chorrillo, whatever. Anyway, so following that incident, we ended up getting split up. So we ended up moving to another section, and I wasn't really worried about the COs running yard any different than the way that they were because we were in the same building. We were just in a different section. And I knew that the COs were going to pretty much operate the same way because, again, we were in the same building. Now, we ended up moving right next door to two ABs, Mountain, and he had a cellie named Patches. There were two cells that had Norteños in them. Both of them had cellies. So there was four of them. One, from what I had gathered, had been there for a while. The other two had gotten there fairly recent, and they were going out to the yard. Then they had stopped. So there were four of them that were considered, they were all no good. So obviously we weren't communicating with those individuals. There were two Imeros that were there. There were two other ABs, Beaver and his cellie Spider, and then you had an Africano, and then you had a bunch of young Sureños. Lazy from Venice was down the way with Spooky. I don't remember where Spooky was from, but basically we had 10 days before we got ready to go out to the yard. And during those 10 days, again, we had to familiarize ourselves with our surroundings. And the best time to do that was like during showers or, whatever movement happened during the daytime, I was always on my gate. Now, here's the other thing. So whenever you got into a situation, you got to a physical altercation out there on the yard, it was 10 days. You got CTQ'd for 10 days. However, you could never take that for granted. Every time they ran yard, even the following day, after we moved over to this new section, we were always suited and booted and ready to go out to the yard, because you never knew when they might run us out. You might get a CO that just didn't give a fuck. Hey, I don't give a fuck about you guys being on CTQ. You want to go to yard? Yes or no? Let's go. I want to bet today. So that was something that I had brought up to my cellie, bro. Every time, even though we technically got 10 days, every time they get ready to run yard, whether if we're busting down or we're no matter what we're doing, we need to stop and we need to post up and be ready just in case they pop up at our door. Come day 7, day 8, day 9, especially on those days, let's be ready just in case. Because again, you might have a CO that comes in that just doesn't know, doesn't care, and they decide to run us out. But either way, so we got 10 days to heal up. Like I said, my stitches had pretty much healed up, but the skin was still tender. And I knew that getting into a good squabble again, it would probably bust open again if I got hit. So that was something else that I was tripping on. I was always in the mirror looking at that shit like, fuck, this shit's going to split back open again. But we had 10 days to get ourselves physically and mentally ready to go back out again. And we were doing what we were doing any other time. Burpees. We still did our studying during the daytime. It was regular program, but there were times when we'd sit down and we talk about just the yard. Like, bro, this scenario comes up. And it was something that I actually suggested, that we sit down and we just talk about different hypothetical situations that might come up. This way, if it did come up, even though a lot of this stuff probably wouldn't happen, the probability of it happening was probably real low. It's still, we'd have an answer for it. We were prepared because it would be something that we had talked about. So it was good to have those conversations about yard. When we got over there, again, I was always the one on the gate. That's just me. I'm always security conscious, especially in situations like that. It was considered a war zone. So I wanted to know who was who, what was what. I wanted to see cats, their physical stature, were they big dudes, small dudes, what their Picassos were. So I was gathering as much intel as I could on everybody that I seen going out to the yard, or coming back in from a visit or from a medical or whatever. And again, they ran yard over there the same way. Now, during those first few days when we were there wasn't nothing happening in that section as far as anybody going out to the yard, because you had those other 4 Norteños that had basically they were dropped out. They dropped out. So there was nobody else in the section that was getting off except the Africano that was down the way. And I'm not going to get into him yet, but I'll talk about him if not this episode, it'll be the next one. So, that's one thing, the mental preparation to getting ready to go back out there. And, when you're in a situation like this and you got to deal with this kind of adversity, one of the things that I used to do, at least me, myself personally, is like, I didn't write home and talk about it. I didn't worry. My mom at that time, she was still alive. My girl at that time that I was with, I didn't write them and tell them, hey, look, I'm in the middle of a SHU war. I'm going out and I'm squabbing, and every day, I'm taking a chance of getting my brains blown out. I would just tell them, it's like, look, this prison right here, there's a lot of shit going on. I'm doing my best to make it home when I can. But, every day that I went to those yards, I always looked at it as this could possibly be my last day alive. And that's a reality. And I'm not being dramatic. I'm not putting too much on it. When you're going out and you're fighting in this type of situation, you never know when you get a CO that's up there in the tower that feels trigger happy. Maybe he just wants to shoot somebody today. You never know. You never know what can happen. Sometimes people don't like you just because they don't like you. They don't like the way you walk. They don't like the way you talk. I mean, I hate everybody. I can't stand nobody. I'm bullshitting, but seriously though, you guys know what I mean. Sometimes you just don't like individuals just because of the way that they are, the way they look, the way they talk, the way they walk. So, being that we're out there fighting up under a gunner, and there's all this other shit that's going on, the betting and people getting killed over there. These are things that are playing out in your mind mentally all the time, um as you're going through all this stuff. That's I would never worry my family, but I would write them and tell them that, and I'd always write them as if, always make sure I told them that I loved them, and that, that it was always positive stuff, because you never know, this could be the last chance that, I'd have to say certain things to them, and I wanted to express a lot of that stuff. So, even when you write your kids, it's the same thing. It's tough, man. You never know if that's going to be the last time that you write them. So it's all part of the mental preparation. The other thing is, you're hearing about a lot of stuff that's happening. You got all those buildings, and there's shit happening. There's shit cracking off over there every day. We used to call it the rooster coop. That's what all of us used to call it amongst each other, the rooster coop, because of the betting, and because that's what it was. We were going out there and we were fighting. Like, we would get not advisements, but like filters from leadership, and that's one of the terms that they would say, is like, hey, what's going on over there in the rooster coop. Everybody was referring to it as the rooster coop. It was crazy, man. But anyway, like I was saying, a lot of the COs, you would hear about stuff that was happening in other buildings, because they're the ones that facilitate all the gossip over there. Trust me, if something cracked off in building 2, these guys over here in these other buildings would be the first ones to know about it. They jump on their cell phone and they'd be talking about it. So you would hear it. When these guys would come in to serve chow. They'd be talking about it, like, hey man, yesterday we had a fatality over there in 2 building. You had two Southsiders and two Africanos that went out, and uh, I guess they didn't get out after they shot the block gun twice. They refused to get out. They refused to comply. So one of them ended up taking a headshot, and then you'd hear him like, who was working the tower? Brooks was working. So you'd hear stuff like that, and that stuff, it doesn't fuck with your mind, but when you hear it, you remember that stuff, man, and you're hearing it all the time, because like I said, it's happening every day. So anyway, that's all I can really touch on as far as the mental and the physical preparation. The physical preparation, we used to do a lot of burpees. We used to work out a lot. We used to do a lot of squats to get your legs strong, because if you ain't got a strong foundation, everything else above it ain't gonna mean shit. If you got some weak ass chicken sticks or escape sticks that are like chopsticks, you know what I mean? You're gonna go out there, catch one on the chin, and your legs are gonna turn into jello. So we do a lot of squats, a lot of burpees. We try to get our stamina up, our conditioning, and we constantly be in there, push, bro, push. Come on, man, keep it going. The enemy ain't gonna give you a chance to catch you in. Keep pushing that shit. Come on, 5 more. So we were in there getting our money and just trying to keep each other motivated. Trying to keep each other motivated and trying to keep each other's morale up. It's a rough situation, and a lot of the homies were giving a lot of the guys that were in Corcoran their props. We didn't have any kind of special or any kind of preferential treatment coming, because we were doing what was expected of us. We were doing what we were supposed to do. But a lot of guys got lucky and didn't have to go through that. And those that stood strong and went through it and represented, that's all that mattered. It didn't matter if you went out there, if you win, lose, or draw. It doesn't matter. All that mattered, if you lost, is that you went out there and represented your team the way that you were supposed to. And even when you lost, you come in with a busted lip or a busted eye, or you were leaking, you felt good. Like, I put on a good show. I represented my team. I did my thug dizzle. You know what I mean? I did my shit. And that's all that mattered. That's all that mattered. I took my L's just like I took my W's. All that mattered to me was that I continued to go out there and I continued to do my thing and do what was expected of me. And that's, I got a sense of pride from just feeling that right there. That's all that mattered to me. And that's all that mattered to anybody over there. Even I'm sure even the other guys on the you know, our opposition, when we would fight them, it didn't matter if we put on a good show. We just kind of look at each other, laugh, and just shake our heads, go back in, wash all the blood off, get medically cleared, go back in ourselves. There'd be no shit talking. Nobody would ever talk any shit. We respected each other as foes, as adversaries. And you have to give each other that respect. You know, I respected the Southsiders, I respected the Woods and the Africanos, anybody that participated in that, because it was like, you know, you got to respect somebody that's showing some heart, everybody that's participating, everybody that's going out there putting their lives on the line. And it's sad when you look at it from a rational perspective that that's the game that we were playing. Like, you got a sense of pride from putting your life on the line, and we were playing Russian roulette. But, you know, at the time, that's the lifestyle I was living. That's what I believed in. So that's what I was doing. Anyway, we ended up moving next to two ABs. One's name was Mountain, the other one was Patches. Mountain was a big ass wood, big corn-fed motherfucker. So you had Mountain and Patches, then you had two other ABs, Spider and Beaver. Then you had two Mexican mafia members. One of them's name, I want to say one's name was Ricky Cruz, and the other one was Raul Garcia, Weddle Smooth. And then you had Lazy from Venice, another guy named Spooky, and you had some other youngsters. And then, like I said, you had the four Norteño dropouts, and you had Africano. So it was a mix in that pod, but there wasn't no other active homeboys. So, like I said, for that 10 days CTQ, it was all about familiarizing ourselves with who was going out. Now, like I had anticipated, or I had assumed, they ran yard the same way. When our time came up to run yard, well, let me back up just a little bit. So when I was saying that they run yard the same way, it was as far as they pull you out, pull you to the front of the pod, you strip out right there, and then you walk out, go to the little enclosure right before the yard, you strip out right there, and then you go out. Now, that part was the same. And for the most part, everything else was the same, but I'm going to get to that in a minute. Okay, so the first time we're able to go to yard, it's been 10 days. They don't run us out before the 10 days. We ended up doing our whole 10 days, and then that's the day that we get ran out. So they do it the same way. Instead of, we're all the way at the corner again. So when they come to run yard, they bypass us like they did in the other section, and they go to Mountain and Patches. They run those two out. At that point, there's no red flags, nothing different is happening. In my mind, I'm thinking we're going to end up going out with Lazy and his cellie Spooky, and that's probably who we're going to end up getting off with. Now, well, I'll get to that in a minute. So that's just what I had anticipated. I assumed that, and I was going to watch for Lazy and Spooky, how they came out, you know, if they were going to, I was just going to watch their body language and their eye contact or lack of eye contact, like I've said before, and see if I could get a feel of whether or not that was who we were going to go out with. And I'd even told my cellie, Lazy was a big fat dude. So I told my cellie, I got Lazy, you take Spooky. Or I gave him, you know, unless you want Lazy, because really Lazy was the bigger dude, but it doesn't necessarily, he was a big fat dude, so he might have been the easier of the two. Spooky was a regular sized dude. He might have been faster, might have been able to squab. I don't know. So I kind of gave him a choice. And he was like, no, I take Spooky. So cool. So we had it in our minds that that's who we were going to go out with. So they run Mountain out. They run Mountain and Patches out. Then they come back in. And then they go to Beaver and Spider Cell, and they run those two out. So I'm like, okay, they're getting the Woods first. They're getting all the white boys. So still, there's nothing raising any red flags. There's no reason for me to trip on the way that they're running yard. I'm okay. They're probably gonna run the Southsiders out now and then run us out at the end. Now, it's a good time to say it. Up until this point, at least in the other section, and at least from what I had been hearing, nobody was packing nobody out. There wasn't, we were just, it was like an unwritten rule. It wasn't nothing that was written in stone, that it wasn't an agreement that we had. It was just like, it was respect. It was a respect thing that from what I had seen and from what I had heard, that if you go out to the yard and maybe there's 6 Southsiders out there, that they would let you get a fair one with 2 of them. So it'd be a 2-on-2. Nobody was getting packed out, at least at that time, at least from what I had been hearing. And, you know, when it came to the Woods, I believe that it extended to them as well. So that's something that you still can't assume. You still cannot assume that that is gonna be the way that it is. But being that the Woods and the Southsiders were allies, I figured that, you know, this was something they probably had communicated about, and they were probably on the same page with it. So anyway, the SEALs, after they let out Beaver and Spider, they come back into the section, and they're coming at our cell. But I don't say nothing to my cellie yet, because I don't know if they're just coming to the end of the tier and then they're going to cut back this way and see who they're going to run next, but they're coming towards our cell, and then I see them reaching for their cups. So I'm like, oh, bro, they're running us out. So I don't get a chance to tell my cellie nothing. I'm going through scenarios in my mind at this time. Okay, so we got 4 Woods out there. 2 of them are some big dudes. Mountain's the biggest. Spider's a good size Wood as well. Mountain is just a big corn-fed motherfucker, just big all around. Spider is like more of kind of yoked up type of kind of big, but out of all of them, Mountain was the biggest. So anyway, Beaver and Patches were just tall Woods, but they were skinny. So anyway, we come out in the section, they bring us to the front door, we strip out. So after we strip out in the pod, then we walk out to go to the little enclosure to where the yard's at. So as we're walking up within 10 feet, I can already see through both windows, and I can see Mountain. I can see him standing on the line. They're not, you know, up until this time, they hadn't been putting people, you know, guys on the lines, and this is the first time we were going out with any kind of wood since I had been there, but these guys were posted on the line. And, you know, hey, respects to them, because me, myself, that's how I would have done it myself. That was one of the things that I had told my cellie when we first sold up. Is like, I'm not letting nobody get no drop on me. I'm not letting nobody go to the back and pick up a handball, throw handball. But that's one of the things that, you know, it's one of the things I want to continue to emphasize to you guys. There was no protocol as far as how you wanted to go out there and get them up with these guys. If you wanted to go out there and pick up a handball and, you know, go through the whole yard, and then at the end of the yard, that's when you wanted to do your thing, that was on you. As long as you went out there and got off, that's all that mattered. If you wanted to go out there and post up on the line and get it out the way from as soon as they come out, that was your choice. If you wanted to wait, again, there was no protocol. You know, like I had told Shadow when we first when we were first cellies though, if we ever go out first, we're posting up. I'm just never gonna let somebody get an opportunity to drop a weapon, because some of these guys can drop weapons, or at least I've heard stories about guys that can drop weapons within a minute or two. So that was one of the things that we had to establish as soon as we were cellies. We sat down and talked about that, and we were on the same page. So anyway, I guess Mountain was on the same page as well. We get into the little enclosure, and my cellie gets his cuffs off first. He's starting to strip out. I get my cuffs off. Well, while he's getting his cuffs off, though, I step to the window and I look, and I seen Mountain when we walked up, but Patches wasn't on the line. Spider was. So what they did was they put their two biggest bodies on the line, Spider and Mountain. I look at my cellie and I tell him, hey, when we're stripping, because you got a solid door right there, COs can't hear you. I'm like, hey, you're gonna have to take Spider, bro. I'll take Mountain. And he was like, where's Patches? He was like, he's not on the line, bro. Spider's on the line. So I don't think my cellie was scared, but you know, Spider was a big dude too. That's just the way that it worked out. These two Woods were bigger than any other Southsiders that were in there. They were probably two of the biggest dudes in the pod, period. So anyway, my cellie strips out. I ended up stripping out. And right when I was done, I put my shoes on. I put them on my feet. I didn't put my socks on. And I stepped in front of my cellie so I could be the first one to go out. And I could already see Mountain getting ready. He was already shuffling around like he was just ready to go. So door opens. As soon as the door opens, fight's on. My cellie goes this way. He goes at Spider. I go at Mountain. We're going at it. I can see them out of my peripheral. Just all I can see is that they're going at it. Me and Mountain, we start going at it. And we're both big dudes, and we're dropping bombs. And one of the first things that I always try to do when I go out, like I have been told, is to try to maneuver my way around so that I can get behind them and watch the tower at the same time. This way I can see what gun the gunners got, and I can kind of keep an eye on that at the same time while I'm fighting. But as I swing around to try to maneuver my way around Mountain, Beaver comes up and cuts me off. So now I'm going at it with both these dudes. And I can see Patches just kind of, I see him rush over towards my cellie. So now I know he's going at it with two. I got two on me. I know I keep saying this, but I want to keep emphasizing this because Mountain is probably about 6'2". I want to say he's about 6'2", probably 260, 270. Beaver's like, he's probably about 5'11", and I don't know, maybe 180, 190 pounds, but still, he ain't no little dude either. So I'm going at it with both these dudes. And my cellie got his hands full the same ways. I told you guys Spider was more like, he was more yoked up, more ripped up type of dude. And Patches was kind of built like Beaver. Tall, skinny, wiry ass motherfucker, man. Just tall, long motherfucker. So anyway, when we're going at it, I still try to break through their little scrimmage. And as I'm going around, as I try to get through Beaver, Spider was right there. I remember taking a quick remember swinging at him, cracking him in the side of his head when I was going by. He's like, here, man, here's a quick ham sandwich. Bow! Anyway, when I swing around Mountain and Beaver, they get back on me. We end up all the way in the back of the yard by the shower. So they by this time the gunner bust one time already. He already got off with the fucking Bertha once. I look up at the window to see the gunner up there, and I can see a bunch of faces. Again, you got a bunch of COs up there all watching. I remember just thinking, like, these scandalous ass motherfuckers, man. So anyway, after the after the first time he shoots with the Bertha. So anyway, the gunner had already got off one time with the Bertha. The second time he got off, it hit me right in the chest. And I remember thinking, like, shit got me mad, man. I was thinking, like, either this motherfucker's purposely, these guys are purposely aiming for me, or I'm some type of fucking magnet for this block gun, because I keep fucking getting hit with this shit. But anyway, you know, I've said it a million times in the past. When you're fighting, you don't really feel it. I knew I was gonna feel it later. You know, I didn't really feel it. My adrenaline's going. I'm in the middle of this shit. But you know, I got hit with the Bertha, and after that second time, the gunner racked the fucking Mini 14. We all heard it. So Mountain and Beaver, they prone out. They get down. I end up proning out. All three of us. However, my cellie still going at it with Spider and Patches. And I'm there proned out for a minute, and I'm watching this shit, and the gunner's not shooting. He's letting them go. So I pop back up. I pop up and I go in to help my cellie, and the fucking gunner takes a shot at me. This is the time where I told you guys that I heard a bullet fly by my head and I almost got shot in Corcoran. I heard the bullet. For anybody that's had somebody take a shot at them and you've heard a bullet fly by your fucking head or fly close enough to you, you can hear it cutting through the fucking air. That's what happened. I heard it fly by my head and it hit the wall or something. But that was enough to make me prone back out. I hit the deck again, and that made Spider, Patches, and my cellie, we all ended up proning out. So everybody's down on the ground, you know. You can smell the smoke, the burnt up the smoke from the Bertha and from the Mini 14 from them shooting. The yard got smoke, there's a bunch of smoke. You can see all the fucking the blocks everywhere on the ground, and nobody's saying nothing. I don't say nothing to Mountain. None of them guys say anything to us, you know, and I was kind of close to Mountain, but we just kind of look at each other. I just look at him and you know, Mountain kind of laughs. He doesn't laugh like, you know, fuck you, punk. He laughs as just like, he's like, good shit, man. You know what I mean? And honestly, after that incident, we didn't kick it with Mountain, and we didn't have a whole lot of conversation on the tier. But you know, if they needed something, if they had a line on the tier, they got tangled up or something, you know, I'd untangle their line, or I'd help them, whatever was going on the tier, stuff like that. It was respect. We still had that respect amongst us, and they extended it back. As adversaries, you know, I know they respected us, you know, the same way we respected them. We were going out, we were doing our thing. The only thing is, you know, they packed us out. But there was no rules. There was no rules. You know, we couldn't be mad about that. They had the numbers, and that's what ended up happening. You know, the Southsiders, they chose to give us that, you know, they chose to give us that respect, and they did. And like I said in the last episode, I would have liked to think that if there was any Northerners that were the majority in a pod, that they would have gave them the same type of respect that they gave us. But, you know, I don't know. I can only speak from my personal experiences. You know, this is probably a good place to end this episode. I was going to go into the next fight that we had, but I want to kind of space it out. Otherwise, this shit will be over in 2 or 3 videos. So I want to kind of break it up. Then I don't know how many more videos there are going to be. Maybe there's going to be 1, 2 at the very most before all this stuff comes to an end. You know, at least I'm going to try to at least throw 1 incident in each video. Otherwise, if I throw in all 2 or 3, it's going to be over. So I know some of you guys were suggesting that I make a series on this. I wish I could. You know, I can only talk about the incidents that I've been in, and I don't think they're enough to run a whole series on it. although that would be nice. But anyways, hopefully, I feel a little bit better about this episode. I'm still kind of iffy. I'm the biggest critic of my own work. We'll see. I'll have Sandman edit it, and I'll see about trying to get this out to you guys by tonight. In the meantime, I'm going to try to cut a couple war stories. I know I need to bring some heat. The last couple that I brought to you guys were just so-so. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to work on that as I send this to Sandman to get edited. This episode 33, Inner Demons. This your boy B, and I'm out.